Morning came softly. Light filtered through sheer curtains, pale and golden, touching the parquet floors of Belle's room. The estate was quiet, the kind of quiet that came before something important, before shift, before movement. Belle rose slowly, not rushed, not anxious, simply aware. She washed her face, tied her hair loosely, and stood before the tall mirror near the window. Her reflection wasn't just hers anymore. It carried history, scandal, rebirth, and something stronger than both pain and memory. Identity. She no longer saw the girl who flinched at whispers and rooms full of watching eyes. She saw the woman who learned how to hold gaze, unshaken. The knock at the door was gentle. Ethan didn't enter until she said, "Come in." He stepped in dressed in a simple black shirt and tailored trousers. No tie, no jacket, no business armor. Just him. He didn't speak right away. His gaze traveled over her face, her posture, her steadiness. "Are you ready?" he asked, voice low, steady. Belle nodded. "Yes." But Ethan didn't turn toward the door. He stepped toward her. He lifted his hands slowly, giving her every moment to lean, refuse, or stand. She didn't move. His palms cupped her face with reverence, as though there was no audience, no world outside, no interview, no headlines, only Belle. "Whatever you say," he murmured, "and however you choose to say it, it will be right. Because it will be yours." Belle's breath eased, not because she needed assurance. She didn't. But because Ethan understood the way she needed to be seen. She didn't lean into him. She simply stood with him. "Equal. Let's go," she said. And that was all. The interview was hosted in a quiet studio. No live audience, no flashing lights, just soft space, muted cameras, and a woman known to be the fairest interviewer in the industry. Marion Crowe, a journalist whose presence carried no theatrics, only gravity. Belle entered the studio not as someone walking into scrutiny, but as someone walking into choice. Marion stood to greet her. "Belle." Her tone was warm, grounded. "Thank you for agreeing to speak today." Belle shook her hand. "Thank you for inviting me." Ethan took a seat to the side, not on camera, not hidden, just present. A shadow of support, nothing more. He did not look controlling. He did not look towering. He looked home. The cameras blinked to life. Marion's voice was clear. "We're here today to speak not about rumor, not about spectacle, but about truth. Belle, if you're ready, we'll begin." Belle nodded once. The interview began softly. "Tell us about your childhood," Marion asked. Belle did not flinch. She did not tremble. She looked directly into the camera and spoke. "My childhood was ordinary. My mother was kind. My father was strict. I was raised to be polite, hardworking, and small. Very small. Not because I was weak, but because I was taught that girls should not disturb the air around them." Marion nodded, listening, not filling silence, not guiding her away, simply receiving. "And when that life changed," Marion continued gently, "it changed very quickly, didn't it?" Belle's eyes softened. "Not with pain, but with memory. Yes, I was pulled into worlds I never asked for. I was judged by rooms I had never entered. And I learned very fast that silence is not the same as safety." Marion's voice lowered. "What made you finally stop being silent?" Belle looked up, not into the camera, not at Ethan, just at the space between them. "I realized silence was hurting me more than the truth ever could." The studio air shifted. Marion leaned in, hands relaxed, deliberate. "Belle, there's a question the world has asked too many times. Today, I'd like you to answer it only once, your way." Belle did not brace herself. She breathed. "Did you marry Ethan Delville to escape your family?" The question settled, a sharp thing, deceptively soft. Belle didn't look away. "No," she said. "I married Ethan because he is the first place in my life where I learned I am allowed to exist fully. And I married him because I love him. No dramatic music, no swelling sound, just truth. Stable, clear, entire." Marion nodded slowly. "And your father?" she asked. Belle's gaze did not flicker. "My father does not define me. His choices do not define me. His legacy is not mine to carry. I am not the daughter of his power. I am the child of my own becoming." There was silence, the kind that fills the lungs, not strangles them. Marion took a slow breath. I think the world has underestimated you, Belle. Belle's voice was quiet, but firm. They still might. Something like a smile touched the corner of Marion's mouth. But I don't think they will for much longer. The interview ended. The studio lights softened. The camera shut down. Belle remained seated for a moment, hands calm on her lap. Then she stood. Not lighter, not heavier, just defined. Ethan didn't move toward her quickly. He approached her slowly, giving her the moment. He brushed one thumb along her cheekbone. You were magnificent. Belle didn't react with shy delight or fluster. She simply answered, I know. Ethan laughed, soft, full, genuine. God, I love you. Belle met his gaze. Good, because I intend to stay. He held her hand, not possessive, not claiming, anchoring. They walked out of the studio together. Two figures, not legend, not myth, not spectacle, just two humans, shaped by storms and choosing each other every time. That evening, the interview aired, and the world watched, not with pity, not with gossip, but with something new, recognition. And in living rooms, in offices, in train stations, on phones, in plazas, and quiet apartments. People saw the woman they had tried to define, and they realized she would define herself. The ripple began. Not loud, not explosive, but unstoppable. The interview did not simply air. It ignited. Across continents, phones buzzed, group chats stirred, news anchors straightened in their seats. Some watched in silence. Others argued. Others simply sat back and whispered, Wait, we were wrong about her. Clips spread like wildfire. Belle's line, I'm the child of my own becoming, appeared on screens, timelines, podcasts, essays, and late-night discussions. Students underlined it in notebooks. Mothers replayed it during laundry folding. Teachers quoted it in classrooms. It became a sentence that stood upright like a spine. But truth, once spoken, does not unlock only acceptance. It also shakes the things built on lies. And some men do not like when the ground moves. The estate was unusually quiet that evening. Not tense, just listening. Belle and Ethan sat in the library, but not as they once would have, her curled into him like a place to hide. No, they sat across from each other, feet touching under the table, two presences that filled the room fully and without fear. Ethan watched her as she read, not staring, just observing. You know, he finally said, I should be the one strategizing the day after a public broadcast like that. Meetings, damage control, corporate positioning. All of it. Belle kept her eyes on her page. Should you? She asked, turning a page slowly. Ethan's mouth lifted. No, he admitted. No, I suppose not anymore. Belle closed the book and looked up at him. Do you feel replaced? She asked. Carefully, not teasing. No, Ethan said. I feel partnered. A soft silence, full-bodied, warm. Belle leaned forward slightly. Then good. He chuckled. You're different, Belle. Not newly different, just finally uninterrupted. Belle let that land. And then, a knock. Firm, not hesitant. Both of them looked toward the doors at the same time. Ethan's posture straightened slightly. Not tense, just alert. Come in, he called. The door opened, and Naomi entered, hair pinned tight, expression like steel sharpened to clarity. There's movement, she said. Belle stood slowly. From who? Naomi's eyes met hers. Your father. Ethan exhaled, not surprised. Belle didn't blink. What has he done? She asked. Naomi handed her a tablet. The screen glowed with a headline. Senator Darius Royce announces press conference in response to daughter's interview. 7 p.m. tonight. Time until broadcast. 1 hour, 32 minutes. Ethan rose. He's going to attempt to discredit you. No, Belle said, her voice low and calm. He's going to attempt to reclaim me. Naomi nodded. He's already contacting journalists, allies, people he once fed favors. He wants to restore narrative authority. Belle placed the tablet on the table with precise quiet. Let him try, she said. Ethan looked at her carefully. Belle, this could become a war of public perception. Belle shook her head once. No, this is a man used to deciding what is real for everyone around him. He still believes I am manageable. Familiar. Small. Naomi crossed her arms. So, what do you want us to do? Belle walked to the window. Outside, the garden trees swayed, branches like hands brushing the air. Nothing, Belle said. Naomi blinked. Nothing. Belle turned. If I respond immediately, it means I am reacting to him. If I rush to defend myself, I grant him the authority to need defending from. If I argue, I tell the world his voice is equal to mine. Ethan's eyes warmed, not protective, but proud. So you let him speak? He asked. Yes, Belle said. Let him speak. Let him show them exactly who he is. Naomi's mouth curved, sharp, approving. You stop playing on his board. No, Belle said softly. I've built my own. The press conference aired on every major network. Darius Royce stood at a podium, flags behind him, posture carved from decades of power. He spoke in a tone meant to sound fatherly, measured, wounded, performative. My daughter, he said, is emotionally distressed, influenced, misguided by individuals who do not have her best interests at heart. He did not raise his voice. He did not accuse directly. He painted a picture. A weak girl, a confused girl, a manipulated girl, a girl who needed him. He smiled once, rehearsed, and millions watched. Some frowned, some nodded, but many simply waited because they had seen Belle's eyes, and they had seen truth. Darius ended with, I will always be her father, and I will not abandon her, even when she has abandoned me. The cameras clicked, the lights faded, the broadcast ended, and then the world held its breath. Back in the estate, Belle sat very still, not angry, not shaken, just thoughtful. Naomi spoke first. That was a carefully calculated emotional appeal. Ethan looked at Belle, not the screen. What do you want to do? He asked. Belle's answer was simple. We move forward. Ethan nodded. With what? Belle looked at him, and the answer was clear. With my work. Not her father's story. Not her pain. Not the reaction. Her future. Belle stood. Naomi, schedule a town hall style talk. Not press. Not elite media. Real people. Real questions. Naomi smiled slowly. Location. Where I came from, Belle said. Where my voice was first taught to be quiet. I will return there to speak. Loudly. Ethan stepped closer. Not to guide. Not to lead. But to stand beside. You realize, he said softly, this will change everything. Belle lifted her chin. It already has. And Ethan, he touched her hand. Not to anchor her, but to join her. Outside, somewhere far beyond the estate walls, the world stirred. Some clung to the old narrative. Some embraced the new. Some simply observed. But the ground had shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, but permanent. Because power built on control collapses the moment the controlled learns to stand. And Belle was standing. The car ride was long, but Belle didn't look out the window. She wasn't avoiding the view. She was remembering it. The roads, the dusty storefronts, the rusted rooftops, the faded paint on walls that had once seemed towering when she was a child. Memory was a strange thing. It didn't simply show pictures. It opened doors. And Belle had spent many years refusing to walk back through this one. Ethan sat beside her, not speaking. He understood silence. Not as emptiness, but as the space where truth arranges itself. Naomi drove in the front, sharp eyes forward, scanning every detail of the route. Several security vehicles shadowed them. Not flashy discreet. Belle didn't want a spectacle, but she was not walking into her past unprotected. Ethan reached across the seat and took her hand. She didn't squeeze. She just held him back, not seeking strength, sharing it. They reached the town square at late afternoon, when the sun was tilted gold and long shadows stretched like gentle hands across the ground. The old community hall was exactly the same. Same chip blue door, same uneven steps, same windows that rattled during storms. But now, a crowd had gathered, not enormous, not like a rally, but full, mothers with folded arms. Teenagers pretending not to care. Old men with chairs brought from home. Children too young to understand, but old enough to feel something important was happening. Belle stepped out of the car, and the murmurs began. Is that her? She really came back? She looks different. No, she looks like herself, just finally seen. Belle didn't let her expression change. She walked up the steps slowly, intentionally, not rushing toward the podium, not making a show. When she reached the top, she turned, not to the hall inside, but to face them. Just face them. Her people, her ghosts, her echo. I grew up here, Belle said. No microphone. Her voice carried anyway. Many of you knew me, or thought you did. A ripple passed through the crowd. I was quiet, Belle continued. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I had everything to say and no one willing to hear it. Heads lowered, eyes lifted. A few hearts flinched. I was told I should be grateful, obedient, perfect, respectable, measured, small. A soft sound moved through the crowd. Agreement, recognition, memory. Belle's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. My father shaped a world where my silence protected his image. And I allowed it. Because I was a child. Because I wanted to be loved. The wind shifted, warm and alive. But love that requires silence is not love. It is ownership. Now the murmurs grew stronger. Naomi folded her arms. Ethan lifted his chin just slightly, watching Belle, not guarding her, witnessing her. Belle stepped closer to the edge of the step. I came back here today, she said, not to reclaim my past, but to return what does not belong to me. Quiet, stillness, truth, bare and unclothed, the guilt, the shame, the belief that I was wrong for wanting to exist. She shook her head once, slow. I return it. I refuse to carry it anymore. The oldest woman in the crowd, one who had once scolded teenage Belle for talking too boldly, began to weep silently. Belle continued, You cannot take back what was done to you, but you can refuse to let it be the author of who you become. A young girl in the front lifted her chin, eyes wide, unblinking, listening for her own future. Belle met her eyes. You do not have to earn space. You simply have to take it. The words landed. Hard, soft, deep. Belle breathed once, slow, complete, and then said, I'm not here to challenge power. I am here to change inheritance. The hall behind her looked different now. Not small, not old, not broken. A seed, a root, a beginning. Ethan stepped forward then, not beside her, but behind her. Beside her was hers. Behind her was his. And Naomi expanded her stance, shoulders squared, energy like a shield. Belle was not alone. Not now. Not again. Not ever. Questions? Belle asked. There was a pause. Then one voice rose. A teenage boy, voice cracking but brave. How do you stop being afraid? Belle didn't hesitate. You don't, she said. You learn to walk with fear and still move forward. The crowd exhaled, some in relief, some in grief, some in hope. Belle smiled, not to charm, to welcome. Come, let's talk. All of us. She stepped down from the podium she had never needed, and the crowd moved, not to watch her, to join her. Hours passed. Stories were shared. Hands were taken. Not all believed. Not all understood. Not all forgave. But all heard, and hearing plants roots, even in stone. Later, as the sky dimmed and lanterns flickered, Belle stood alone for a moment under the old tree where she once sat as a child. Ethan approached quietly. You didn't conquer this place, he said. Belle looked up at him. No, she answered. I made peace with it. He nodded. You ready to go home? Belle smiled, small, real. I already have. And they walked back together. Into the night. Into the future. Into the world they were building, not inherited. Chosen. Night in the estate was rarely quiet anymore. Not because of noise, there was very little of that, but because change hums, even in stillness. It vibrates. It breathes. It waits. Belle sat on the balcony, wrapped in a silk shawl, the sky above her layered in deep violet and ash blue. The stars were dim tonight, like they, too, were listening. Ethan joined her with 2 cups of warm tea, setting one beside her before taking the seat across from her. You haven't spoken since we left the town, he said softly. Belle traced her fingertip along the rim of the cup. I did what I needed to, she replied. You did more than that, Ethan said. You reshaped the ground you grew from. Belle didn't smile, not because she disagreed, but because she knew what came next. Power does not crumble quietly, she whispered. Ethan leaned back, watching her with the kind of attention that didn't weigh but steadied. No, he said. It doesn't. The phone buzzed on the small table between them. Belle didn't have to look. She knew the name. She felt the weight. Darius Royce. Her father. Ethan waited, not to guide her. She didn't need to be guided. Belle picked up the phone. She didn't say hello. His voice came through calm. Too calm. The kind laced with threat disguised as concern. You've made your point, Darius said. Belle's jaw tightened, but her voice was smooth. No, I made mine heard. There is a difference. A small pause. A measured inhale. You are being watched, her father said. People do not take kindly to women who humiliate powerful men. Belle let silence answer before she spoke. I didn't humiliate you, father. I finally told the truth. You should be careful with that word, he said, his tone sharpening. Truth is built, Belle. Manufactured. Positioned. It is not something that simply exists. Belle leaned back, eyes steady. That has always been your mistake, she said. You believe truth is something you create. But truth created for others is not truth. It is control. There was no raised voice. No tremor. Just precision. Every word placed like a chess piece. And Darius Royce recognized the board. So you think you've won, he murmured. Belle shook her head slowly, even though he couldn't see it. No, she said. I think I've left the game. The quiet on the other end was not confusion. It was calculation. Her father was not a man who panicked. He was a man who rearranged the battlefield. You think the public will stay on your side? He asked finally. They admire you now. They feel moved. Inspired. But inspiration dissolves, Belle. People are fickle. They follow the story that is repeated the loudest and longest. Belle closed her eyes. And that, she said, is why I am building something they can belong to, not just watch. Another silence. This one was different. Her father understood now. Belle was not making statements. Belle was building infrastructure, community, voice, space, continuity. She was not a scandal. She was a movement. Darius Royce exhaled, long controlled. So, he said quietly, you intend to oppose me. No, Belle answered. I intend to outgrow you. The words were soft, but they landed like thunder. She ended the call. She placed the phone down, and she did not tremble. Ethan watched her, not as a man evaluating battle strategy, not as someone fearing what comes next, but as someone seeing her clearly. How long have you known the next conflict was coming? He asked. Belle stood, walking to the balcony rail. Since the moment I stopped being small. Ethan joined her, standing beside her, equal height to the horizon. So he said, what is the next move? Belle looked out over the estate, the gardens below glowing under soft lantern light like constellations fallen to earth. Naomi has already begun, she said. Ethan raised a brow. Then I should be updated. Belle's voice warmed just slightly. You will be. But first, there's something I need you to understand. Ethan's gaze sharpened. Not defensive, not wary, open. Belle turned to him fully. I'm not fighting my father, she said. I am fighting the world he shaped. The patriarchy, the quieting of daughters, the smooth silencing of women in polished rooms, the generational inheritance of being acceptable instead of authentic. Ethan's breathing shifted, slow, grounded. And you won't do it alone, he said. Belle lifted her hand. Ethan took it, without hesitation, not leading, not following, joining. Meanwhile, in a penthouse office lit by the glow of late-night city windows, Darius Royce stood with his back to the skyline. A man approached him, not a politician, not a journalist, a strategist. You're losing her, the strategist said. No, Darius corrected, voice quiet and cold. I am preparing to take back the narrative. How? The strategist asked. Darius turned, eyes sharp like carved obsidian. By taking the one piece she cannot afford to lose. The strategist waited. Darius smiled. Public trust. Far away, Belle felt the shift. Not fear, not panic. Momentum. Storm meeting storm. Light meeting dawn. The world was no longer moving around her. It was moving with her. And for the first time in her life, she did not brace. She rose. The following week unfolded not like a storm. Loud and chaotic, but like a tide. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. Belle's interview continued circulating. Students discussed her in universities. Community groups invited her to speak. Journalists analyzed her phrasing like scripture. Her words became conversation, not about her, but through her. And that was the difference. She wasn't becoming a public figure. She was becoming a reference point. But her father, Darius Royce, did not sit idle. He did not strike hard or fast. He did not accuse or threaten. He did something older, something more dangerous. He began to whisper. It started with articles, not outright attacks, suggestions. Is Belle Royce being manipulated by corporate interests? Emotional trauma and its influence on testimony. Daughters of powerful men, when rebellion becomes performance. The tone was subtle. Belle was not wrong. She was simply fragile, misguided, shaped by outside forces. A story that allowed the public to feel sympathetic, while quietly removing Belle's authority over herself. Ethan read one of the articles at the breakfast table and set the tablet down with slow, deliberate calm. They are reframing your narrative, he said. Belle buttered her toast evenly. Yes, she said. They're softening their grip to tighten it quietly. Naomi entered the room, laptop under her arm, hair tied back in a neat coil. It's coordinated, she said. Not loud. Focus tested. They're positioning you as emotionally unstable but well-meaning. The public won't hate you. They'll simply stop trusting you. Belle took a sip of tea, eyes steady. That is why we move now. Naomi arched a brow. Move with what exactly? Belle pushed her chair back and stood. With infrastructure. Ethan stood too. Tell me, he said, not to challenge, but to engage. Belle looked at both of them. Her team, her allies, her family chosen rather than inherited. I'm founding something. Naomi blinked. What kind of something? Belle spoke clearly, each word shaped from the center of her chest. A foundation. For girls who were told to be small. The room still. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just inevitable. A global mentorship network. Workshops. Education funding. Legal support for women facing coercion or narrative control. A platform for voices like mine. Voices that were never allowed to begin. Naomi's lips parted. Not in shock, but in recognition. You're not responding to the narrative, she said. You're replacing it. Belle nodded. Yes. My story will not be a scandal. It will be a blueprint. Ethan's voice was low, but full. What do you need from us? Belle turned to him. You will handle the financial structure. Silent backing. No branding. This isn't your empire. It's our legacy. Ethan's chest warmed. He nodded once. As you wish. Belle looked to Naomi. You will build the skeleton. Partnerships. Schools. Counselors. Community liaisons. I want this to function without me needing to be everywhere at once. Naomi smiled. A full, genuine smile that sharpened into purpose. So, you want it to survive you? Exactly. Belle's eyes were steady. I am not building a spotlight. I am building a system. Within days, the foundation had a name. The Root and Rise Institute. Symbol. A tree with exposed roots, strong, deep, alive. Tagline. Inheritance begins again. Applications began pouring in before the official launch was even announced. The world was ready. They had simply needed permission to begin. But power does not shift without resistance. Late one evening, Belle sat in her study, reviewing a list of proposed board members. A message arrived. No name, just a number. A secure private channel. She opened it. For words. You're not ready. Belle didn't flinch. She typed back. I already began. There was a longer pause this time. Then, you think you are building something new, but you are only repeating me. Belle inhaled once, slow. She typed. No, I am correcting you. Silence. Then, we will see. Belle set the phone down, not shaken, not frightened, simply aware. Her father was no longer fighting for her. He was fighting for the story of himself that she threatened. A man cannot lose the world when he believes he is the world. And Belle was teaching the world to breathe without him. Downstairs, Ethan waited for her in the living room, leaning against the sofa, hands in his pockets. When she appeared, he looked at her as though he always knew exactly when she would. He stepped forward, not to ask, to join. You're not doing this alone, he said. Belle met his eyes. I know. And this time, She didn't mean it as reassurance. She meant it as truth. Outside, night settled over the estate. Not heavy, not ominous, just full, like the sky itself was holding its breath. Because the world did not belong to kings anymore. It belonged to the daughters who refused to kneel. A daughter who rewrites bloodlines. Morning poured into the estate like silk, soft, golden, slow. But inside Belle, something had crystallized. Resolve. She dressed not in elegance that morning, but in simplicity. A cream blouse, charcoal slacks, hair drawn loosely, no jewelry except her engagement ring. Not an ornament, but a statement. She was not here to impress. She was here to build. Ethan walked beside her as they moved down the corridor toward the east wing, his hand loosely in his pocket, his posture calm, but his presence watchful, the way a lion rests beside the one he chooses to guard. Naomi was already waiting in the library-turned-temporary war room. Whiteboards lined every surface. Maps of countries, demographic reports, projection charts, legal outlines, scholarship models. But the centerpiece was a single phrase written in ink across the largest board. The world isn't changed by force. It's changed by permission. Belle stood in front of it, her expression unreadable. We launched the Root and Rise Institute in 6 phases, she said. Not loud, not shocking, not desperate. We build quietly, steadily. Nothing that could be dismissed as emotional impulse. Naomi nodded. We mirror the structure of old power, but with transparency. Belle looked at her. Yes, we use the bones of the empire, but we grow our own flesh. Ethan stepped forward, laying an envelope on the table. A formal document stamped with federal certification. 501c3, status approved, he said. All paperwork processed, trusteeship frameworks established. You have legal autonomy. Belle took the document in both hands, not reverently but steadily. She whispered, almost to herself, so it begins. They launched in silence. No press conference, no interviews, no dramatic headlines, just a website. A simple opening video. Belle standing in front of chalkboard, sleeves rolled up, no makeup, hair loose, smiling softly. My name is Belle, and this is for the girls who were told to stay quiet. Sit with me. Let's learn to speak. The video spread without effort. Teachers shared it. Mothers, community workers, women in boardrooms, in kitchens, in shelters, in universities. The movement did what movements do when they are born from truth. It moved. Meanwhile, the whisper campaign against Belle shifted tone. Her father's influence touched editorial boards. Commentators spoke gently now. Belle Royce has a good heart, but no experience. She is young, impressionable. She is reacting from trauma, not ridicule. Something more effective. Delegitimization. Naomi slammed a folder onto the table. They're trying to turn you into a child, she said sharply. Belle stirred sugar into her tea with unhurried care. I know. Ethan watched her, quietly studying, reading, knowing. Naomi paced. We can counter with credibility campaigns, university endorsements, professional affiliations. Belle raised a hand. No rebuttals. Naomi stopped mid-stride. Belle continued. If I respond to their narrative, I agree that it defines me. I am not correcting their version of me. I am building mine. Naomi exhaled slowly. That is infuriatingly strategic. Belle smiled faintly. It is also necessary. That evening, Belle visited the first physical pilot center, an old community hall in the Arts District. The walls were faded. The floors creaked. The windows needed restoring. But Belle stepped inside like stepping into sacred ground. Girls, perhaps 14, 17, 22, waited in folding chairs, uncertain, curious, cautious. Belle walked to the front. No podium, no microphone, just floor, just space. She didn't introduce herself. She simply said, "Tell me what they told you you must be." Silence. Then, they told me I have to be polite. They told me no one wants a loud girl. They told me I should be grateful for attention. They told me my anger is unattractive. Belle nodded. Not pity, recognition. And what do you believe? She asked softly. Eyes lifted, breath steadied. A girl with short hair spoke first. I believe I was never meant to apologize for being alive. Belle felt her chest tighten, not with sorrow but with awe. Yes, Belle whispered. That is the beginning. The session didn't feel like teaching. It felt like opening windows. And when it ended, a girl lingered behind. She hesitated, fingers shaking, voice small. Miss Belle, how did you know you were allowed to leave your father? The question did not stab Belle. It breathed into her. She lowered herself to sit, eyes level, voice gentle. I didn't know. She paused. I left anyway. The girl cried. Not loud, just tears running freely. Belle held her, not as a mentor, as someone who once made that same impossible choice. When Belle returned home, night was deep, the estate quiet. She found Ethan waiting on the balcony, shirt sleeves rolled, glass untouched beside him. Not drinking, only thinking. He turned when he sensed her. How was it, he asked. Belle stepped beside him, resting her hands on the railing. They weren't asking for guidance, she said softly. They were asking for permission. Ethan looked at her, not with admiration, but with certainty. You are changing something far older than your father, he said. Belle's eyes lifted to the city lights far below. I am changing the inheritance of silence. Ethan stepped behind her, one arm slipping around her waist, slow, sure, grounding. You are not alone in this. Belle leaned back into him, not to rely, but to share the weight. I know, she whispered. Her voice did not tremble. It rang, quiet, clear, unbreakable. Far across the city, in a tower of mirror glass, Darius Royce stood watching the same lights. He held Belle's interview transcript in one hand, the route and rise mission statement in the other. He did not look furious. He did not look afraid. He looked like a man studying a chessboard and realizing the game was no longer his. She did not inherit my power, he murmured. A shadowed advisor beside him asked. Then what did she inherit? Darius answered. She inherited my audacity, and she is using it against me. The advisor swallowed. Sir, what will you do? Darius smiled. Slow, measured, inevitable. I will invite her home.